stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't really trying to surf the web, I was reading a couple of things, but it seems that's good they opened up some of these attachments that are opened up through the internet.
It might just be.
Yeah. But you didn't have any problem, you got it figured out.
No, I was working up there, and that computer's working okay, I just tested it.
Yeah.
I meant to text you last night also to let you know per Yona that next Monday's class is also a Buffini Blitz. They're starting that and they'll be meeting at 8:30. It'll be people that have done it in the past. So if you want to partake, otherwise we start at 9:30.
And is that every week or just,
I don't know if it's now every Monday. I think their Blitz starts and goes.
glitches, they want you to do even more? How's your contract working?
Working.
Sellers agreed.
Yeah, they took one thing out, which the buyers totally, I mean, the buyers wouldn't put anything in.
Yeah, right.
But no, they agreed and,
That's super. I'm happy.
yeah, thank you for your support yesterday.
You bet.
Hi,
Good morning. How
how are you?
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you as well. What's happening in your world? Look at the nice color you're wearing.
What happened to you? Not too much, just getting my family early.
Oh, good. I need to go Mr. Johnny Cash here.
Johnny Cash.
Yeah, I call John Green or Johnny Cash because every deal that he's made so far is a cash deal.
Oh.
Johnny Cash.
Good morning, Bob. That's right, it's creepy. I'm watching you.
Looks like it's just gonna be even.
I lost a little track of what the AHA class is about now.
It's a different topic. Or for, you know what I think it is this week? And I would think Caroline would be here. Last week it was about, but I think it's more about how to approach, which I've got a young couple, how to approach the buyer broker agreement. Yeah, it was about, I can give a printout, I took all my notes on that. So this might be.
It was 2 weeks ago, because last week, I know I came and it had gotten canceled, so.
Yeah, that was the week before it got canceled. It was, because I remember we all sat around, yeah, we had an AHA last week. It was the week before, because I remember I couldn't make that one. Because I know Caroline was sitting there and Bill Tucker had been here the day before, last week. Bill was here on Wednesday, so we picked up some of the things that Bill, that was Thursday's meeting, I'm sorry. Thursday's meeting revolved because we took,
Yeah, I couldn't make that one either.
Okay, yeah,
I
and we
wanted to
talked-
make that one on Thursday,
Yeah.
but I didn't, but yeah, I was here on a Tuesday. And it worked out okay.
Last Tuesday,
It got
it's not
canceled.
like,
It
yeah.
got canceled.
This is when that comes.
How's your diet, or
It's working out very well.
so you're consistent with your fasting, intermittent fasting?
I don't eat breakfast, so I make sure I stop eating by 8 o'clock. Usually it's around 7:30, the night before, and then I don't eat good morning till 12:31. Sometimes it's even later than that, so I may be home more than 16 hours some days, just depending. Like today might be one of those, I'll have some nuts or almond butter or something, because I have a broker's open from 12 to 2, so if I eat, it's gonna,
And you're also trying to cut carbs?
oh yeah. I've always been a non-carb person for the most part.
You
I
have.
mean, if I did, prior to my going on this diet, I would have like a slice of Ezekiel bread in the morning with my avocado toast and, you know, like an omelet thing. But I think cutting that out even that much. Well, hi, Trader.
Have you noticed any change in like, you know, arthritic
I think that's
pain?
worse than dying.
Any
Yeah.
joint pain?
Yeah,
I've
you
never
are.
really
Welcome back.
had much joint pain. I mean, I've had back issues, but it's a different kind of situation. But no, I mean,
You know, that is considered to be one of the potential byproducts
right, of this,
of getting the carbs out of your system.
right, exactly, because I think they cause inflammation, do they not?
Well, they talk about leaky gut,
Right,
like like it somehow, yeah, I don't want to present myself as overly knowledgeable, but.
but no, I've seen and read that quite a bit.
I just was curious, because I've improved, but I'm certainly not perfect.
Mhm. Yeah, and
And
then,
I have I've got a bone on my knee, so I can get that kind of inflamed.
right.
And I haven't noticed much change in that.
I was gonna say, folks, if you're listening in, you're getting a preview on the health aspects of life and how
How
to
did we start?
It's funny, at some point, we'll try to figure out how to do this thing. Chris, depending on when Chris sets it up, I don't know if any of you go back and look at these, but sometimes you have to fast forward like 15 minutes, you know, because it's just the chit chat until, you know, things get started. Listening? No. I saw John Green.
There, I don't know if he's coming down or he's.
All right, well, we're gonna go ahead and, yes, we are gonna go ahead and get started. All right, as promised, what we're doing this morning is talking about the exclusive right to represent agreement and how to explain it in simple terms so that when you get in a situation, you can use it to handle what the law says we're supposed to do. And just so you know, I'm going to come from a place of the fact that if you can learn how to explain this in 15 or 20 minutes, I believe this is the best thing to do in regards to that 15 or 20-minute conversation that you want to have with people before you show them a house. Or maybe you show them a house for the first time and then you're getting together with them a second time. That 15 or 20-minute conversation, because and you can't go into this, possibly because I teach it, but you can't go into this without understanding the law of agency. I mean, simply put, the law of agency says at the first substantive discussion, it has said that since buyer brokerage came into being back in the early 90s. So it's been 25, 26 years. If you know the history, everybody used to be, we represent the seller, Logan's the listing agent, Bob has a buyer, Logan obviously is representing the seller. Back in the day, Bob would have a buyer, but he wouldn't represent the buyer. He would be what's called a sub-agent to the listing agent. And Bob would have literally a fiduciary relationship with the seller. Seller's paying the commission, and therefore, whether it's, you know, Bob's brother, Bob's best friend, Bob who's had this person in their car for a year and he knows everything about him now, he literally would have to lie by saying that he wasn't really looking out after their best interest when he brings you a contract, because he's technically is supposed to be looking out at the seller's interest, not the buyer's interest. It was miserable. Mm-hmm. The whole way it changed, and not to get off track, but I think it's important, the whole way it changed is that people started complaining about not having representation. And especially as it related to homeowners associations that were coming in being, never had those before. And people were buying houses in their homeowner associations not knowing that they were, and that they were subject to covenants and restrictions. And they go to their, you know, board of supervisor or their house of delegate or whatever and say, you know, I got screwed. And this person didn't tell me these things. And the other agent said, I didn't have to tell you. You know, as I told you, I represent the seller, blah, blah, blah. So, not that not that the political people get it right a lot of times, but they got it right in this situation. 25, 26 years ago, they made the decision to make our commission a concession. Just like seller pays closing cost, seller pays a home warranty, they said the seller could pay the buyer's commission. And overnight, we went from no representation to everybody represented because everybody wanted representation, but they didn't want to pay for it. You know, there's only one guy I know, and you might remember this guy, Bob, because you were up in Northern Virginia for a while, Jim Talkington. Have you used that name? Well, Jim was literally truly a buyer agent. He had a company that only worked with buyers. If you want to be represented, you come to Jim, and you pay Jim 3% or 3.5% or 2.5%, whatever he, you agree. You pay him as far as a transaction. But when the law got changed and they allowed commission to become a concession, immediately, that's what everybody wanted, obviously. And it relieved all the agents of this, which I should have gone to jail, or at least been cited. Because I sold houses to my brothers, I sold houses to my friends, that kind of thing. And I would say to them, now look, Gus, my younger brother, you're gonna buy this house in Arlington, don't tell me what you're willing to offer. Now, don't tell me what you're willing to pay, because if you do, I'm gonna have to go tell the seller. That because I didn't represent him. If you gave me information, I was by the code of ethics and by law, I was to tell the listing agent that. They whatever it might be, they're willing to offer 140, but they're going to go to 180. Well, you might as well just change it to 180 and send it back to them. So the good news is, go ahead.
So who did the seller pay both
Yeah.
commissions still?
Yeah, seller paid the commissions in. The only change is that they changed the law to make the commission and not the law, but the mortgage regulations to make that into a seller concession. Although the working of that, I wasn't in that part of it at that point. There must have been some behind the scenes working, because if you think about it, a 95% loan to value, you can get a 3% concession. Well, the commission doesn't count. Even though the law says it's concession, the lender doesn't see it that way. So you still could get 3% in closing costs, right? And if it's 10%, you can get 6% in most of FHA, you can get a VA, you can get pretty much whatever you want, all right? So now, let's just get off on one little tangent since we're there. One of the ways that you could get around it, and you could still get around it today, is you could go to a Jim Talkington back in the day, and you could say, look, I understand you want to get 3%. I'm not paying you. I want you to write a contract that says the seller's going to pay 3% of my closing costs. I've got the money for down payment, so just use the example of $400,000. I've got $40,000 or $80,000. 380,000. I got $20,000 to a 95% loan, and I've got 3% of 412. So that's, what is that? 32,000. I've got 32,000. That means I've got a down payment and closing. But what I want you to do is write a contract asking the seller to pay 3% of my closing costs. If the seller agrees, that's how I'm going to pay you. I'm going to have an agreement, but I'm going to pay you 3%. I'm going to do my down payment and closing costs, but I'm going to have this additional 3%. You could still do that today with like a for sale by owner. You get a for sale by owner that says I'm not paying commission. You can work with a buyer and say, look, we're going to write an offer, and I need to get paid. What we're going to do is we're going to write an offer with the seller paying closing costs, hopefully at a price range that they're willing to agree to it. They never know that they're paying my commission. They don't need to know. The only person who needs to know how I'm being compensated is my client. So I can say, okay, we're agreeing to 3%. And so I'm going to write this contract at $400,000 and ask for 3% closing costs. And when they give us the 3% closing costs at closing, that's how you pay it.
And so that doesn't show up on a HUD. I guess it's no longer called a HUD, but
It's called a disclosure, closing disclosure.
the buyer paying the commission would be off book.
No, it would be on the buyer. The disclosures are, the seller doesn't see what the buyer has. It used to be, it used to be the HUD had both.
Right, yeah.
Now the seller gets theirs and the buyer gets theirs. So whatever those agreements are. And it's interesting you bring that up, Bob, is that, again, another scenario where somebody comes to you and says, I want to buy your listing. I'm not an agent, therefore I want you to reduce your commission. Well, they don't have any right to reduce your commission because the commission is between you and the seller. So you can say, look, you tell me what you want to offer and we'll make it work. So again, use my 400,000, they think 3%. So they make an offer of, 388, they make an offer of 380, because they want to, get their 3% and a little bit of extra pound. Well, unbeknownst to them, the seller and you have decided that 385 is their bottom line. So they counter at 385 and the buyer agrees to it. And they think they won because they got 12,000 and 3% and $3 additional $1,000 because they came in without an agent. Back in the day with HUD, it said the HUD at the table and all of a sudden say, wait a minute, you get paid 6%. I thought we agreed. No, we agreed that you make an offer, based on what you think is right, and I'll see if I can make it work. The seller in the listing agent's agreement is totally theirs. A buyer who doesn't have an agent has no right to that money at all. They think they do. And so you just go along with it. You don't argue with them. You say, hey, we'll work that out, and see it. Now, let's just say that the bottom line was 390, right? Well, at that point, you as a listing agent and your seller make a decision. Hey, we'll reduce our commission by $2,000. So you see it. They can buy paying and what they owe and that kind of thing, any credits, and you got sellers. So anyway, traveling back, law changed. And what the law said is that the first substantive discussion, the first substantive discussion, the buyer has the right, or the prospective buyer, okay, has the right to know whether they're going to be represented or not, and if they are, by whom. And that's where this comes in. Because what the law says is first substantive discussion. I disagree with the way it's set up now. I believe the first substantive discussion is when you put the keypad in the lockbox for the first time and you accept the offer of compensation that comes with that. Because again, the MLS is not an advertising vehicle. It is an offer of compensation to the people that are members of that MLS. Okay? Hey, Gavin. Good morning. So it's not an advertising vehicle, but it's an MLS. It's an offer of compensation. Anybody that's a member of those. And again, we talked about this, I think, last week. If you are going to go up to Madison or Culpeper, and somebody finds a house that they're interested in, you may have gone up there, you found a house in the car MLS, but you may go up there and see a sign, you call on it, and it's in the, whatever they call it now, Bright MLS, right? You're not a member of that. We are as a company, but you aren't. So you would need to call Bob and say, Bob, this is Logan, I'm a four-wheeler, I'm up here in Madison, I'm showing property. I noticed a sign, I'm interested in seeing it, I can't find my MLS. Well, the reason is because it's in Brandon. So you would have to ask him, I work for 3%, what is your offer of compensation? And Bob would say, well, that's good news, it's 3%. Great, I'm gonna send you an email and say, I need you to help me go see the property, you agree to let me in, but I also need an email back saying you agree to pay me 3%. If I bring you a buyer that's willing, ready, willing, and able, and they close on it, that you're going to pay me 3%. If you don't do that, you risk the fact of doing work for free. Now, I quite thankfully have never heard that happen, but it'd be very easy. Somebody from Richmond drives in here, and they want you to show property, you show property, and they have to write a contract. If they never ask for the offer of compensation, there's nothing that says you have to give it to them. Now, obviously we want to cooperate. So, again, going back to where we are, we're meeting with the prospect. So I disagree with the way they've got it set up now. They because of the pushback, they changed it. They changed the procedures to what I call the John Updike clause. And the John Updike clause is we're gonna have a get to know you session first. So when they came back strong 3 years ago and said, no, you have to have something in writing before you ever show a property, because that's substantive. There was so much pushback by agents who didn't want to do this that the Virginia Real Estate Board changed it to say you can have a get to know you session, but the second time something has to be signed. And I get, John says it's kind of like a first date, that kind of thing. I get that, but that's not what the law says. all right? But it is what the regulation says, so fine. So anyway, so let's just assume for the sake of discussion, whether you want to do a get to know you session or you want to do this up front, where I'm coming from this morning is I would get used to using this agreement as what I talk about for 15 or 20 minutes. Because this walks you through the whole process. And it gets them used to what's in here. So that at the end of it, you can get them to sign it in one way or another. And we'll talk about that. And before we do that, just so you know, and you don't have a copy of this, you don't need it, just to point it. This is the exclusive authorization to sell, all right? When you get called, Logan just got called, somebody wanted to list their house in Earlysville. Logan knew that she had to go out there and talk to them and explain to them why she was the right person for them, blah, blah, blah. And when they agreed to her for that, she knew she had to get this form filled out, right? This is the listing agreement. This says that when is it going to start? When's it going to end? How much am I going to get paid? What are the duties I'm going to do? What are the seller's duties? When does it, what's the purpose of it? And a signature on it. We know that, hey Carolyn, we know that naturally, that when we get called to, list a house, we know that this form is what we're ultimately going to get, right? So where I want to go with this is the fact that when you get called and somebody says, I want you to show me a property, I want you to think about it as a listing appointment, except it's a buyer appointment. And that there is a listing agreement for the buyer, just as there's a listing agreement with the seller. And the elements of it are the same. You know, it talks about when does it start? Who's it with? What kind of property is it? When is it going to start? When is it going to end? What are my duties? What are the broker's duties? What are the buyer's duties? What's, the person you work with? How's the compensation going to work? The dual designated agent, in regards to if you end up, we end up looking at a regular property or my own property, we need to talk about representation, and that's what this is all about. Recordings within the property, obviously, prior to photographing, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, the point being is, this has everything that a 15 or 20-minute conversation needs to have. Now, Susan Rears has done, and you can go back on YouTube and watch the AHA class from a couple months ago where Susan went through her whole interview. She doesn't do 20 minutes. She does, I don't know, an hour 50, before she ever takes anybody off anywhere. She wants them to know exactly, and she got that from an agent that was kind enough to come down from Northern Virginia, who used to work for me, who just did it unbelievable. And the whole point of doing it unbelievable is that she had a standard of who she was going to work with and who she wasn't. And her standard was, and I'm not saying you need to do this, but her standard was, are you paying me $500 when we first meet? And are you willing to sit with me for 2 hours for me to go through the process so that we go into this with you understanding exactly what's going on? And you're going to pay me $500, it's non-refundable, but I'll credit it back to you at closing. If I do get paid, we actually go to closing and buy something and I get paid, then I will credit you back that $500. But she wasn't going to work with anybody and then not get something from it. That's pretty impressive. It's a tough thing to do because you have to do it every time. You have to literally, because the last thing you want is to put yourself in a place of discrimination. I didn't do it for you, but I did it for this person because I thought maybe this person looked like they could buy a house more than you would, that kind of thing. But anyway, so she came down, she did her whole spiel, and Susan bought into it big time. And she doesn't go to ask for the money, but she does go through the whole process. What I'm going to talk about, this morning is this whole aspect of sitting with somebody in that 15 or 20 minutes and using this form to explain it. And basically what I'm going to try to do is just sort of role play a little bit, but I want you to ask questions and everything. But what my hope is that we get out of this and you've just got some ideas as to how you would explain it. You don't have to explain it the way I explain it. But what you want to do is you want to understand this agreement well enough that you can paraphrase it in your own words. And at the end of the day, my intent isn't 15 or 20 minutes. My intent is to get you to sign this. Okay? Maybe not exactly as I would want it to be signed, but I'm going to get I'm gonna do everything I can to get a signature. Because when it comes to representation, when we come to the law, we're to decide who our principal is. Is our principal the seller or the buyer? We're gonna disclose it, right? We're gonna get it in writing, and then we're gonna act consistently in that relationship. If we know who our principal is, buyer or seller, if we disclose it, we get it in writing, and then if we act consistently in the relationship, we will never get in any trouble. Not that we're not gonna have trouble, but you're not gonna get in any trouble. And what I mean by that is you never wanna have one person thinking that you're representing them when you're not. When your whole standard agent representation is for the seller, and somehow you start making the buyer feel like you are looking out after their best interest when you're not. That's what's called UDA. That's Latin for cow pie, which means if you step in it, it's really hard to get it out off your shoes. And technically, that's not true. It's really undisclosed to the agency. You never want to put yourself in a position where somebody thinks they're being represented when they're not. So, general questions before I kind of get into this. I just feel like it's important to understand those other things before we talk about it. All right. So somebody called you up. I'd like to see the property, or it's a Zillow lead or whatever. I'm interested in seeing this property. Hey, great. Thank you so much for contacting me. When's a good time for you to see the property? So you're basically right. Okay. Well, we can do it Wednesday at 3. Now, here's a little thing from my standpoint. I want to be obstinate. I don't want to be arrogant, but I want from the get-go to be in control. So if I look at my calendar for Wednesday at 3 o'clock and it's wide open all afternoon, I'll say, I really can't do it at 3. How would 4 be? Because I want them to have a sense that I'm busy. And they can't just, I don't want from the beginning for that person to think they can call me anytime and I'm going to just drop whatever I can. Okay, 3 o'clock Wednesday? That's great. Now, if you want to do that, it's fine. For me, it was just always work for me to just change it a little bit so that I'm in control. I'm showing I'm in control from the beginning. Does that figure out? Okay. So anyway, 3 o'clock. I got something going on. It's going to be pressing for me to get there. I get together at 3. Can we do it 4? Yes. Okay. Great. Where would you like to meet? Don't. You take. That's why you're taking control. Where would you like to meet? And they said, well, how about we just meet at the property? Well, quite honestly, that's not the best thing for me. Let me just explain to you that in the Commonwealth of Virginia, there's a law. It's called the law of agency. And that law says that we are to have a conversation about the process of buying a home prior to me ever showing you a house. So would coming to my office be okay with you? Where's your office? Well, it's on 8th Street downtown. Well, this property is in Ruckersville. I'd really rather not have to come in and go back out. Hey, totally understand. We've got an office out on 29. How about if we meet there? Yeah, that's great. Or if that doesn't work, we could meet at Blue Mountain Cafe. But the point being is I want to meet them in a place that I can go through this with them. I also want to meet them in a place from a safety standpoint, from a security standpoint, and do not minimize that. Use the law of agency as the dad being the bad guy. There's no reason why you should be meeting somebody at property that you don't know who they are, and no reason, and even more no reason if it's out in the middle of nowhere. That's why previewing is so important. If you're going out in the middle of nowhere and you've got no cell service, that's something that you need to be aware of, right? Anyway, so where would you like to meet? Well, I'd like to meet at the house. Well, the house isn't really a good place to do this because I'd like to have this conversation with you. Could we go to the office? So however you want to do that. But whether it's a Starbucks or someplace where you can sit and talk with those folks. And so you arrange a place. Let's say it's in the office. You take 15 or 20 minutes, and then we'll be on our way. That's the other thing. It's not Susan. It's different, but we're talking about 15 or 20 minutes. Just want to have this conversation before we head out. Another thing, just from a safety standpoint, that I've been reading and listening to, preparing for teaching and stuff, which I'm not a big fan of, but I get that. They're now beginning to talk about driving your own car and having people follow you. So that you've got your own way of getting away if there was an issue. That would be really hard for me as an agent because I learned so much from the people while I was, we talk all the time about build rapport, gain credibility, show people we care. There's a lot of that going on in the car. But again, you have to be careful because if you're going to take people in your car, you're going to take people in your car. And somebody makes you willy-nilly say, oh, I'm going to drive my own car. You're in a situation. Now, I would err to your safety side in that situation. But understand that you're risking a discrimination perception. That if somebody says, well, I don't understand why a person wouldn't drive my car. And if they filed a complaint and they did research and they saw that you always have people in your car. But again, I would go at the risk of security in that situation, a way of explaining. One of our agents had a situation where she was asked to go to a listing appointment. She went there, and hair was standing on the back of her neck, and something happened. She literally got up and left, and called me and the team leader in the office and said, "Look, I'm sorry, but if I upset this pretty well." It turned out the guy was fine. He wasn't, but he did something that caused her to feel uncomfortable, and she just was out of there. And so the team leader had to call the guy back and explain what the situation. And I can't remember now if I know we listed the property. I can't remember if we listed it with that agent or somebody else. But anyway, the point is, she did the right thing. If she didn't feel comfortable, then you get yourself out of there. So
when it's a family involved, I find that they usually have, they have the car seats, so it's better than.
yeah, and if they got a packed car, they are offering, hey, we better, but this is for sure, don't get in their car. If they're offering to drive, say, okay, then just follow me. Do not put yourself in a car with somebody else where you don't have control anymore where it's going. That's really not a good idea. So we're sitting down, we're talking and say, hey, I appreciate you taking the time. I'm really looking forward to getting to know you. And as I shared with you on the phone, the law of agency says that you have the right to know that you are representing or you're not, or that you want me to represent you or you don't. And therefore, what I want to do is just walk through a form with you real quick so that you understand kind of what this is all about. And I would say, any questions so far? No questions. Okay, well, very simple. This is what's called the exclusive right to represent by agreement. It is a legally binding contract, and we'll talk about that later. I don't want you to get concerned that I'm going to cause you to sell your firstborn just to see a property. I'm not, and you'll understand that. What's that? How much for the firstborn? Yeah. At this point, it would cost you a lot, but a few years ago, that not cost you very much at all. But the point being is, we're going to walk through this. Let me walk through the whole thing, and then I want you to we'll get into more detail on it, but I don't want you to get stuck on anything until we get to the end. So today's October 2nd, 2018, and if you agree to sign this, we're going to put your name in here, your legal name in here, or whoever it is that's going to be buying the house. And then we'll go to the realty company, which is the broker. And if you feel comfortable, you can put your own name in there, and we're willing. That's totally up to you. What we're going to do here is we're talking about what this agreement pertains to, and that's what number one is all about. It's talking about what type of property it is that you're going to buy. And as we talk, we'll know when we do fill this form out, we'll know what we want to put in. Quite honestly, the simplest thing to do is to bring in any and all residential real estate in Central Virginia, because we don't know if we're just going to start out today and get this thing signed. We really don't know where we're going to end up, so we can make it very generic. But just again, we can make it as specific as you want as well, and we'll talk about that. The term obviously will start today because we're together. It's October 2nd, and we'll talk about how long once we get to the end of the agreement. Okay, great. Because I don't want to get into, and for me, it's going to be
sticking point right there.
It would be if I'm saying I wanted to sign it for 6 months. If I'm saying we're going to talk exactly. Hey, it starts today, and when it ends, we'll talk about after we get through this. Okay, and I'll explain why we get there. The next thing is all the things that I'm gonna do for you. You know, if you choose to allow me to represent you, there's just a ton of things that I'm gonna do with you, particularly as a standard agent. Standard agent means that I'm representing you and you alone. Roy Wheeler and me are representing you and you alone. And we're gonna represent you in a diligent, effective manner to locate the property that we talked about above, available for purchase and suitable to buyer. Unless otherwise provided by law, the buyer consents in writing to the release of information. But the broker, me, I'm going to maintain the confidentiality with your personal information, your financial information, and any other matters identified as confidential by the buyer. Because if we do agree to this and you sign this, I am now an agent for you. And with agency comes confidentiality. So no matter what we talk about, regardless of whether our time together terminates, it's something that I never am able to give to anybody else. The only difference would be, and it doesn't really happen on the buyer side, is the seller, if there are material defects in the property, things that maybe you don't
What's the
see
matter?
the property, the listing agent, what's he doing?
I have no idea.
Hello? Hello, we can see you.
The listing agent would have to disclose those things. But you tell me about your finances, you tell me that you got $100,000, but you only want to put $20,000. That's information that stays with me, never goes to anybody else. It's obviously you, mortgage person though, so that you're credit worthy. So we're going to maintain confidentiality for you. If the broker is not the listing firm, again, which we'll talk about, the properties that you called me on are not regular listings. But if we get to the point that we're showing regular listings, my relationship, my standard agent relationship representing you exclusively, we'll have to talk about that, and we'll get to that later on in the agreement. So the listing firm is not listed firm, broker shall represent the interest of the buyer, as we've talked about. And the broker shall not have any obligation to search out such properties beyond those that come to the attention of the broker in the ordinary course of broker's business. Broker may represent the buyers who make the same property. So what that's saying is that if we decide that this is the area that you want to look in, you can't hold me responsible if you find a property out in a place that you didn't tell me about. You can't say that I'm not doing my job because you told me to look in this area, or you told me to look at 4-bedroom houses, not 2-bedroom houses. And so in knowing what you're looking for, I'm going to do my best to find those properties. But if the point of all this is if you change your mind and the fact that you can't find a 4-bedroom house in the price range you want, so you want to be in less, then you need to let me know that so that I can, do the best job I can for you. One of the things in here, sure, go ahead.
Is that, you have a lot of experience with that nowadays? To me, just find your own house with everything online now.
Right, and I think that goes along with what you're saying here, that,
I guess I'm just asking if people come to you complaining about that, buyers.
you definitely hear,
Yeah.
agents definitely hear buyers say, I don't know why I'm paying this money, I'm the one who found the house.
Yeah, I hear
Right.
that.
And again, I've talked about this with my daughter, in this group. It was like a contest between Becca and I, who found the property first, Barb, me, or Becca. Because Becca's on Zillow and she's getting all these reports, and I'm on Realtor.com and I'm on CarMX, whatever. And so we would joke about the fact that, hey, do you see this one? Oh yeah, that kind of thing. And I'll be perfectly honest, by going through that with Becca, I became a believer in Zillow. I believe that they were just as current on the properties coming on the market, not on pricing and things like that, but on coming on the market, they were just as quick as the car MLS and the Realtor.com.
And I would see that it is
Yeah.
But she found it on Zillow.
Yeah.
Right.
And I said, I'll approach the seller for you.
So again, here's what we're talking about when they come up with that. Hey, if this is going to work, we got to be a team. And we're all going for the same thing. We want to find the right house as quickly as we can so that we can be right there if it's the house you want. And I'm going to be doing all my stuff. I may even write some letters into neighborhoods if we can't find what we're looking for to see if I can drum up other business. But if you see anything, then you need to let me know so that I can figure out if it's on the market, what the price range, because you may find something on Zillow, or you might see a sign and that sign is more than you're willing to pay or whatever. Another thing that we'll get to, go back to the purpose or the consideration is I want to help you with FSBOs as well. I want to help you with new home construction as well. And just so you know, I can work that out. So I don't want to be driving down the road, Caroline, and see a for sale by owner and immediately took a sharp left because I don't want you to see it. I want you to know that I can help you with that for sale by owner. So if you see a for sale by owner sign, you'll call me and you'll say, hey, there's that property on Northfield. Can you find out about it for me? And then you'll go and talk to the for sale by owner, see what their situation is in regards to whether they're willing to work with agents and that kind of thing. And the same thing with new construction. I want to help you with new construction. Well, why do I need you to do that? I'm just going to go to the new home site and talk to the agent because there's a lot of things that I can do to help you in regards to making sure you get the best financing, being a mediator between the builder and you. The builder likes that as much as you'll like that. But the bottom line is you need to understand that in most situations, there's certainly exceptions, but in most situations, the base price of the new construction already has my commission in it. So you're not going to get a better deal. So why not have somebody that's going to walk you through that and help you with that? Because you can just say that, and if they want more information, then you just say, let me just explain it this way. And Bob can certainly confirm this. I got there are 10 homes in this neighborhood, and they're $400,000 each. And it's 3% to the buyer agent. So that's $12,000. Everybody with me? Times 10 is $120,000. Most new home builders will tell you that 6 out of 10, give or take, have an agent involved. So 6 times 12 is $72,000 of the 120. Everybody with me? Mm-hmm. And we divide the 72,000 by 10. That $400,000 base price has a $7,200 marketing fee, commission fee. It's already built in. It'd be crazy for a builder not to have that built into their price because it cuts into their profit margin if they don't. So all that's already been worked out. So yes, you may go and there are a few people that might, compensate their sales agents different or something. They don't have it. The bottom line is most of them are not going to make a deal with you. So it's better for me. And so the whole point of this is I'm explaining these things up front so that I don't want the person to go away from this meeting thinking, oh, well, I'm just going to do this, but if I find a new home, I'm not going to have to. I want them to know that I've explained it to them. If they want to cut me out of it, then they're making that conscious decision versus, oh, I didn't understand. I didn't think about that.
But isn't it also that in situations like that the builder, the sales person on the floor, whoever's representing the builder, want to purchase it?
Oh, right, yeah.
So
Oh,
that's
right.
the representation
Most of
part
the
of it.
time they're
They're
employees.
employees.
In fact, one of my questions I didn't ask.
Their interest
Oh, yeah.
on the builder's behalf, not on the purchaser's behalf. And I'm saying that
They're very nice. They're wonderful people. They build rapport. They gain credibility, but they don't represent you. It's all about making sure.
Usually the argument that
Yeah.
you have the right to,
Absolutely.
even in construction.
Right. Great point. And that's what this forum would do as well. What question were you going to ask?
Well, if agency has changed, I'm wondering, you got builders now who now require their salespeople to be licensed. So, right, I think Stanley Martin has licensed agents on site.
Yes.
And I'm wondering in my own mind,
No, Craig does. I don't think Stanley Martin does.
Yes.
well, like Chris Silvers is an agent with Nest, he's the listing agent.
Yeah, but he's the listing agent. Their site agents aren't.
They're not.
He got his license so that.
Well, let's say Craig, for example.
Yeah. So Craig has changed their philosophy, and they've got they're employees of Craig, but they are licensed. So Kate is here. TJ is with Nest, and then who is it?
DeBose daughter, Lucy DeBose, so she has hers for long.
Well, my question really is, what do they tell me? I mean, what do they disclose?
That they're representing.
Represent the seller.
And so but yet they're there to write a contract for the buyer. So they're having to go through, if I'm an employee, if I work for ABC Builder and I'm a non-licensed agent, I'm not representing anything. I'm an employee. I'm going to write, here's the form we're going to fill out.
So in that situation,
I want
Kate or
3 copies.
TJ or whoever would be what's called a standard agent, representing the seller only. And they would need to disclose that, yeah.
But somehow they have in their contract language, they must have a disclosure that they're not representing the buyer.
Or they need to disclose that they're dual agents, right? If they're representing.
They don't, though. They could, and we'll get to that down here.
That's the other
They
part.
could say I'm a dual agent, but then, see, the builder would never let them do that, because the builder's now not being represented. They're just facilitating.
So they have designated agents for the seller.
No, they're standard agents for the seller, because now, if the agent is from Lloyd Wheeler,
Yes.
then there would be designated.
Got it.
And we'll talk about that when we get down next time. So that, from a standpoint of the broker's duties, buyer's duties, is that I need to know that you're working with me. That's what this form is about, that if I'm gonna do my job, as I just talked about in the broker's duties, then you're gonna do your job by letting me represent you. And what that means is you're gonna be available to look at property, you're gonna allow me to give you the opportunity to get you the information that you need. You're gonna be available during regular working hours to view properties. Now, again, that's a generic thing. Our regular working hours are on the weekends. Sometimes. But the one outside example that I always use, I used to have an agent in Northern Virginia that took creating standards for himself too far, whereas he told people when he did this, is that you gotta be ready to look at properties during my regular working hours. And by the way, I only show properties on Tuesdays and Thursday afternoons and every other Saturday. Those regular working hours. Well, obviously, he's not in the real estate business anymore. But he took, he had a family man, going back to Buffini, he took the family thing and made that bubble much bigger and all the other ones shrunk, right? Because people are, what do you mean? That's not what I'm looking for. But he disclosed that as he talked about what he expected from his buyers.
But that's not to say, Michael, that you cannot tell them, hey, look, I'm available most of every day with the exception of Saturday afternoon.
Right, or Wednesday, or whatever. Hey, my day off is Wednesday, or my day off is Tuesday.
Yeah.
Other than that, we'll make it work. Understanding that I'm working with other people as well. So we've got to fit into your schedule as well as fit into my schedule.
In most of this language for people who are trying to get out of this contract.
I would say the opposite. Most of this language is to put them in a position where that they understand if they want to get out, they understand that they're messing with you versus I didn't understand it. The whole point of explaining all this is that there's no mistake about what it is I'm expecting from you. And if you think you're going to go out and look at for sale homes without me or new home construction without me, I've explained how it works. I've explained how I'm going to get paid, right? I only get paid if you buy something. I'm not on a draw. I don't have an expense account, those kind of things. That's why we're eating at McDonald's, not at, Sedona Tap House or whatever, because I'm on a budget, but yes, the whole point of this is to try to get somebody to sign something that says, I want to work with you.
So the customer can't call up and say, I want to look at the house at midnight, you can do it, so I want to void my agreement, because the truth is, I found it for sale by owner, and I want to say, I think I can get a better deal, or I'm going to a builder direct.
And that's why, again, and we'll get to it, when we write this out, not the first time, but maybe the second time, we're adding into the consideration any and all, really including new homes and for sale by owners. I want to have that language in there so that there's no doubt that I'm counting on working whatever you find.
Bank owned properties too.
That's it.
I put bank owned properties in there too, foreclosures and things. I put the whole spiel in there.
And you have it pre-printed,
Yes.
so it's there ready, because I would think that would be helpful.
Yeah.
If you're not filling it out, making it look optional. Oh yeah, I forgot about this.
Oh, good point. I've never had anybody screw me that way. You know,
It's
I
not
mean,
that
Gavin,
bad, guys, come on.
Gavin is a great example of somebody I referred directly got in business. He worked his tail off for this guy for a year. Wasn't it a
You
year?
went all the
Uh,
way down.
Everywhere.
6 months.
Yeah, everywhere. Went here, there, and everywhere. And the guy at the end of the day bought a new home, right? In Manassas or,
Yeah, I don't know.
well, bought someplace, but waited for this agreement to end.
I had that happen.
And then even though he just did everything, it was a referral from me, from a loan officer in Northern Virginia. I mean, yeah, exactly. And thanks a lot to- And thanks a lot to Sal, who I trusted with his referral, and we did everything we could. The guy-
Well, what happened was, so I do a lot of work in Wintergreen as well, and it was getting into December. And I told the guy, you know, he wanted to see a lot of stuff on the weekends. And I said, hey, my Saturdays and my Sundays are filling up because I work at Wintergreen, it's ski season's coming up, and I'm a ski instructor there too. And I just said, hey, we'll make it work, like you said, but my time is, you know, it might be a little bit more difficult. And next time I tried to get him to sign a new agreement, he said no.
Yep.
And 6 months and 60 properties later.
And 400,000 miles, because the 60 properties were, you know, not exactly close to each other.
Oh, yeah.
So you know the market now. You know the market.
All right, so here's the good news as we go through this form. I want you to know and be, you know, be comfortable with the fact that you're not going to have to pay me. That's what this next paragraph says. You know, I'm going to get compensated, and again, this is what I tell the people, but you need to understand, I only get compensated if you buy something from me. I don't have any salary, I don't have any per hour type of things. It's only if I bring you to a property, you decide to buy it, and it closes. And please understand, finding you the right property is sometimes the easiest thing to do. It's the process afterwards and getting everything together and negotiating with the seller and home inspections and things like that. I only get paid if all that comes down to the fact that you sign a piece of paper and get a key to the house. So I want to make sure in this situation that they understand completely that I'm not, you know, so many times, oh, I just thought you bumped. No, this is how it works. And I'm going to get paid 3% of the gross purchase price of the property acquired by the buyer. And most times you're going to check the second one. Unless you've got to the place where you're very, very strong and feel comfortable with it. The second one, I'm going to get paid whatever the listing firm or by the seller or brokers acquired the buyer, but such compensation shall not be less than. And so you put 2% or whatever. But in most situations, did I confuse you?
No.
Okay, in most situations, there's an offer compensation of say 3%. Sometimes there are brokers that only offer 2.5%. Builders, and from what I understand, Stanley Martin just changed theirs to 2.5 as well. Ryan went to 2, but once you get the second one, it's 3. Stanley Martin watched that, saw that it didn't really impact them, so now they supposedly just announced recently that they've gone down to 2.5. But what you're checking here is, again, especially when you're first starting with somebody, I just want you to know you're not having to pay commission. So let's just get that on the table. We're going to put in here that whatever I get paid is going to be off, is what's being offered by the listing broker. And that immediately relaxes.
But that's only if you check the middle one, right?
That's right.
Yes.
So if you wanted to, again, you could check the top one and put 3% in. And if Stanley Martin only offers 2.5%, the buyer would be responsible for 0.5% to you. So a $400,000 house, 0.5% is,
Well, I mean, it says buyer agrees to pay broker the fee equal to 3%. It doesn't say a maximum of 3%. I mean.
no, the first one, you're putting in what it is. So
So it should be 3% from them and 3% from the seller. In theory.
well, yeah, you could put 6 in if you want, but
It says you're gonna pay, the buyer's gonna pay it. So if you have a MLS agreement, you're gonna get a second 3%. There's nothing that would prohibit that. Right?
well, except if you're putting in 3% of the gross price. That's all they're agreeing to pay is 3. However it gets paid,
I got you.
yeah.
I'm sorry, I've been
That's
confused
okay.
at first, and then you want to
Okay.
check the second or.
So if you are a place where you are adamant that you're gonna get paid 3%, you would put 3% in the first box.
Right.
Check the first box, you put 3% of the broker's purchase price. Right? And that means they're gonna pay you 3%. So Stanley Martin sorry that we're throwing you under the bus, Stanley Martin. Stanley Martin is 2.5%. If you're listening, Stanley Martin, there's 0.5% that's missing.
Right.
So, and I don't know, why am I having a hard time? What's 0.5% of 12,000, $4,000? No, that would be a third.
Well, the 1% is 1,000.
Okay, so instead of $12,000, you'll gain 10, so the other two's gotta come from someplace. With me?
Yeah.
So either the buyer pays it because they agreed to pay 3%, or you do what I said, you get saying we're gonna pay $2,000 in closing costs and you do it that way. But what this is saying is that they're agreeing to pay you 3% regardless. What most of us will do, until we're at a place where we got so many buyers we don't know what to do with, and we won't work for less than 3, is we'll check the second box, which says the compensation offered by the listing firm or by a seller to a buyer on property acquired by buyer, but such compensation shall not be less than. So again, you may be thinking, okay, I'm willing to go to 2.5, but I'm not willing to go below that. So you would put in not less than 2.5% of the gross commission. Therefore, if it's 2, you've got another 0.5% you got to deal with.
Wouldn't that be covered in the second box if you just checked it and you?
No, because if you
Then you
want,
call the listing agent and then.
Exactly.
Before you open the lockbox and then you say, what do you say?
exactly, what would happen in that, and again, in the situation where it's 2.5 and you want to get paid 3, I would call Bob Hauser and I say, hey, Bob, it's Michael Guthrie. I'm going to be showing lots of properties out in Ivy today. You've got a house over on Leeds Lane and you're offering 2.5% to the buyer agent. Is that correct? I said, yeah, the seller already. I said, no, I get it. But you need to understand that I've got an agreement with my buyer that says I'm going to get paid 3%. Now, you're not explaining this to the buyer. This is, okay. I just want to make sure we're out of that part of it. The boss says, well, I can only offer 2.5%. I said, well, I've got an agreement that says I'm going to get paid 3%. If I bring you a ready, willing, able buyer who brings an offer that your seller agrees to, are you willing to change that 2.5% for me, for this purpose, to 3%? And in most situations, the listing agent is saying, I'll have to ask myself. And you very nicely say, no, you don't. Because the listing agreement's already signed. And you agreed to 4.5%, 5%, 7%, I don't care what you agreed to, but you've only offered me 2.5. Right? So out of what you've already got agreement, what I'm asking for you is to give me a half of whatever it is that you.
So if I listed it for 5.5, let's say the seller beat me down. I've got a listing agreement. It calls for 5.5% to the agent. It doesn't tell me. It may specify what's being offered to the sub-agent.
That's all it's going to do. It's only going to show what's being on MLS.
5.5.
It doesn't show what the listing part is.
Okay, so it does. So it says 2.5 to the seller. So what you're saying is instead of splitting it 3 and 2.5,
Well, 2.5, 2.5, whatever it is.
you're gonna change that.
I'm going to ask them that if I bring you a
Out of their
buyer,
pocket, out of my pocket in this example.
right, out of the company's pocket, right? And the point being is that if the house has been on the market for a while, a listing agent trying to get sold may very well say, yeah, okay, I'll do it because I want to get this house taken care of. But you have to do it before you ever open the lockbox, because once you open the lockbox, you've accepted the offer of compensation. And the code of ethics is even clearer in the fact that once you've written a contract, you can't try to negotiate. Oh, by the way, I've written you a contract, here it is, but I want 3%. About too late then. Now you're in violation of the code of ethics. So what you do is you have to have a very nice conversation. And if it's a situation where people really want to sell it, one, they haven't even thought about the fact they have to tell their seller. Because the agreement's already made. They got to talk to their broker, maybe. They don't have to talk to the seller. And say, if I can get this deal done, by paying Bob 3%, then I'm going to do it. And so they say, great, thanks. Would you just send me an email that says we've had this conversation, so I have something in writing that says that the offer comes.
Okay,
Go ahead, no, go ahead.
so if he's covered, he says, no, I'm not doing it. Then if you put 3% in here in the second box, and then he's holding his ground,
Right.
for that, then is that what the closing costs? would
Yep.
be?
Then you say, okay, well, if you're willing, then we'll make an offer of, we'll make an offer that's accepted to the seller with the seller paying $2,000 in closing costs, which will make up this difference. I'm already getting 2.5 from the listing agent, but that closing cost, you'll agree to pay me 2% more if we're able to do it.
This feels like it would be a very awkward conversation.
I have.
You-
I have to agree with
Wait,
Bob with that one. I really do. And I-
wait, we're not having that conversation here.
No,
We're having a
understand.
conversation of how I'm going to get the money.
But it's almost like, it would almost be like, so I'm the agent, I'm the selling agent. And so I'm representing you, and I'm boss, you may be liable to pay me some more money. Or unless we can engineer in a different way. And I feel like I'm, I don't know, it would just feel like I'm cheapening the process by not looking, and I'm no longer looking out for that customer's interest.
Okay, so here's the thing. You're right. You're absolutely right, and that's why you check box 2.
So if I
Because if you check box 2, you're only gonna give what the listing agent gave you.
well, what do you fill in? So let's say you're dumb and young, or dumb and new like I am. And I'm willing to say, listen, you're gonna be my client, good gracious, I'm glad to have one. Thanks for the game's afoot. I'll take my chances.
That's my point.
If there's a Fishbowl and I get $500, I'm gonna count it a good experience.
No, that's different. We'll talk about that later.
And I'll take when you go into it thinking, I'm gonna get what I can get.
Right.
I'm gonna have confidence in myself, builder, maybe less, Fishbowl, maybe even less. But I'm gonna establish good rapport, and I'm gonna try to make some money and help these people. What do I put in the blank?
You put in check, listing firm, and not less than NA.
NA. So NA would say.
And or to sum up,
I'm at red.
I'm that's what see again, we got off into the weeds because we're trying to explain it. Remember what I said initially. Don't worry, Bob, you're not gonna have to pay commission, because in most situations, you're gonna check box 2 and say, I'm gonna take whatever the listing firm, whatever the for sale by owner, whatever the new home people are offering me, and not less than NA. I'm taking what I get. You are up. And that's, again, we're doing this in 15 or 20 minutes. Of course, we're doing it in an hour now. But we're doing this in 15 or 20 minutes. All we're saying is, take the pressure off. You're not paying anything, right? The other things are how you're gonna deal with it if it's anything different than what you want. So you're saying that you're gonna take the, whatever the county's offering.
Yeah.
But that doesn't say I can't go to that listing agent and say, hey, I work for 3%.
Sure.
It doesn't change this, because the compensation, if I get it changed, is what's offered by the listing firm. So I can go and try to get that extra 0.5%. If I can't get it, I can't get it. And then I move forward with that from there. Hang on a second, Kevin.
The experience that I've had. Yeah. You remember that client that I had who went and bought his business and didn't want to pay as a result, but we had a better agreement. So I look at it this way.
And he got paid.
Box 2 is you get the listing, what's offered in the listing from the listing company as the buyer. Box 1 is for business. That's kind of how I look at it.
So you check them both?
I do check them both.
Okay.
It's fine.
And it says and or.
What happened to me was I had a client, I carried him around forever, always, and I called them up one day and they said, hey, we went and bought a business.
And or, right,
Do that too.
okay.
Meaning, Gallup not getting paid. But I had had this conversation with her, and she actually used to be a realtor. And so my response to her,
She didn't understand.
and my response to her was, you know exactly what you did when you went and bought a business. And she was not happy, but
And she wrote us a check and said she was gonna take us to car. Never did, because she knew we were absolutely right.
So let's walk through that though. So you check box 1, it says you're gonna get 3% of the gross purchase price acquired, or whatever that's how it's being interpreted, right? Or whatever the compensation is that's offered to the listing.
That's right.
yes.
So does that mean 3% becomes a floor, like you're gonna get a?
Yeah, I think, I don't know what you do, but I think if you're gonna check both, you've gotta put not less than 3% of the next line.
I put the read both of them.
Yeah. You have to put the 3% of the next line. Now, here's the thing. If I put 3% in the first one, check, and or the compensation offered by the listing firm, blah, blah, but not less than 3%, right? And or NA, right? It doesn't mean I can't go back and change this with the buyer.
Sure.
This is what we got in first. Then you go back to them and have that interesting conversation. Hey, here's the situation. I'm gonna try my best to get this, but if I can't, then I'm willing to change this to 2.5. You make the change down, don't put the pressure on them to change. Now, again, once you have enough people, or the people you've done a lot of time, and said, I hope you feel like I've earned this. Are you willing to at least try to get closing costs to make this up? If we don't get it, then I don't get it. See, and in that situation, again, it's this team thing. It's this part. I want you to get this house, but I also want to get paid for my work, right? And therefore, we put in 3% of gross and or the compensation, but not less than 3%. But it comes in as an offer of 2.5%. I'm going to go try to get it. I didn't get it. They said no. You know, they could try, but I'm not giving you any more. Then I go back to my buyer and I say, you know, this is the deal. Are you willing to allow me to put an offer in at 2% in closing costs to offset what I didn't get? They say, no, I'm not willing to do it. Okay, fine. Then let's just change this to 2.5. Because I'm not going to, I'm going to take my chances. I want to build rapport with those people. I want those people to refer more business to me. You know, that kind of thing.
So,
You're establishing the value.
yeah, well, it's just a, hey, traditional compensation is 3% to the selling agent, so we're going to put 3% here. And then I guess you can open the door and say, if we find a house where there's something different, we'll have a conversation.
Yep.
With your interest in mind.
Yep.
I don't use the traditional.
How does that come out then?
I typically explain to them, our viable compensation is 3% of the gross purchase price.
Roy Wheeler.
Or deals, yeah.
That's
the blow. I'm not saying traditional, because then I get into the weeds of pricing.
Yeah.
But what I do tell them is, there may be instances when you're not in a position where they're going to be 3%, and new construction is one of them. And for sale by owners, maybe another one, possibly even, foreclosed bankrupt properties. So when we get to this particular point, then we're going to have to figure out how we're going to, address that. And sometimes, depending on how much work they have already done, I do explain to them, okay, so if I hear that there's a lot of for sale by owners in their lives, then I say to them, look, for sale by owners is a very easy way that we can approach that. I can help you with that, because what I do is I pick up the phone, I call the seller, I ask for permission to first show the property. And secondly, ask them if they're willing to compensate us for that, if I'm bringing an offer. And I take the next step, I say 99.9% of the seller agree. Unless there's a situation that he's tight on money or something, but let's give it a shot.
That's and the key is, and she's doing it right in both ways. She's telling her client what's going on, but she's also the process is right, because you can't show it. You need to have something in writing from the for sale by owner before you ever show the property. I learned that the hard way. I lost in court over a rent by owner, where we yes, I'm willing to show it. We showed it. We asked for the $900 or whatever it was for the rental fee. They gave it to us. Everything's fine. And all of a sudden, I get this subpoena, small claims court, over $900, and the judge ruled in our favor initially. I was walking out the door of the courtroom, and the guy said something. Judge said, "Mr. Guthrie, come back here, please. I've changed my mind." And he said, and this is true, he said to me, it's like you held a gun to the landlord's head and said, I'm only going to have this person rent your property if you're agreeing to pay me, if you pay me $900. He said, what you should have done is you should have gone and gotten that in writing before you ever showed the property. And I learned my lesson the hard way. I mean, I teach now, as an example, I use every time, because one, you never want to go to court and let somebody else be in control of what happens. But two, he's absolutely right, that you want to have whatever it is you got in writing before you ever show that property. And that, going back to disclosure and representation, that for sale by owner needs to understand, I don't represent you. So the form says that I represent the buyer, but that you agree to pay me that 3%. So then what that means is I'm a standard agent representing the buyer. The seller now has no representation. Versus if I have a listing and somebody wants to buy it without an agent, I'm a standard agent for the seller. That buyer doesn't have representation. But in both situations, I can provide what are called ministerial acts. I can, and again, the best way that is explained, and Barb, I don't know if you were in that GRI class or not, but somebody said, the line for me between ministerial and looking out at somebody else's best interest is that when you're giving information, it's all ministerial. When you start giving advice, it's representation. And that just is such a clear separation, because I can give comps, I can tell home inspectors, lawyers, lenders, blah, blah, blah. But when somebody says, what do you think I should pay for the house? Now I've gone beyond ministerial acts. Go ahead.
From the cheap seats. What about listing agents not paying on seller concessions after the deal is done?
I texted?
Yeah.
Okay. So, it's a great question. What they've asked is, more and more, you're seeing listing agents say, we're not paying on, and we're gonna stop with this one, and we got halfway. More and more, you've got people saying, it's a $400,000 house, it's 3%, that's $12,000, but we're only gonna pay you on $388 because there's 3% in closing costs.
Sure.
You can do that only if it's in the remarks, in the agent remarks. If you've got offer of compensation 3% in your MLS listing agreement, the offer of compensation is 3% unless in the agent note says commission to be paid on, because the listing agreement, this is the other part of it, the listing agreement, if you represent the seller, that has to be in this agreement. Because this says broker's fee 3%, it doesn't anywhere say less concessions. It says 3% of the gross price. So, and again, I don't want you to get in trouble with other people. I don't want you to be adversarial, but Tommy, I don't mind saying it, Tommy Brannick and I have a difference of opinion, right? He, does that, and he does it all the time, and now he puts an agent remark, so he's fine. But initially, he said, that's just standard practice. I said, Tommy, that's not standard practice. Show me in your listing agreement, or show me in the MLS where you said 3% minus concessions. Well, it's not there, but just everybody understand it. No, $12,000, 3% is $360 or whatever. The point is, it's a principle of it. I've got an agreement that's 3%. If it says 3% minus concessions, then I need to put in the agent remarks 3%, the 3% less concessions, right? If it's not in the agent remarks, you owe me 3%. That was the offer of compensation, and you can't, well, back to the question, you can't negotiate that after the fact. I brought you an offer, and here's the reason. The reason you can't do it is because if you could negotiate the commission you on the buyer side and the seller side after a contract's written, it would happen every time.
Sure.
You would have the wild, wild west of people just saying, well, this is what's going to be the deal. The code of ethics is very clear because people have tried to take advantage of that, in my opinion.
I find it to be actually very strong, especially at Kyoto, where I work. I find it to be very strong in trying to get this to essentially offer that as a way to save the seller money.
And again, I have no problem with you using that as a business model, that you said, this is what, all I want you to do is disclose it.
Oh, absolutely.
And it needs to be in this agreement, in the listing agreement, where it says 3%, you put a footnote and put in other terms.
I put it in the other guy.
Yeah, other terms, and then you put it in the agent remarks. You're fine with that. If that gets you a listing, it's kind of like somebody wanting you to reduce your commission, and you're not going to reduce your commission, but you say, okay, I'll throw in a home warranty. The seller that particular seller just wants to feel like they got something. And if I get a home warranty versus 1% listing discount, and here's the other thing. Yeah, and I had this conversation with the agent the other day. Yeah, our auto default is, I'm going to reduce it by 1%. You can reduce it by 0.25%. Just do whatever it is that you feel is a good business decision on your part versus just, whatever. All right, so we almost got through 3B, or 3, whatever it is, and we will pick that up. Well, not next week, the following week we'll pick it up. I'm hoping Jay will be here next week. I'm actually in my 100 holes of golf next Tuesday morning. So we'll pick this up afterwards and hopefully get it done. But hopefully this is helpful for you as you think about how to do this. I mean, Logan being brand new and whatever, I know it kind of, but the key is listening. You take great notes. Just think through it and write it down as you would explain it.
Okay.
So that it comes out of your way. Then you'll find it so much easier to do because you're explaining it in your way. And if you need to get a donor or me just to, hey, this is how I think I'm going to explain it, just write it out. You send it by email and whatever. And then the key is, I'm not a big script person, but I believe in knowing what I'm going to say. I mean, there's a difference. I'm not going to just read Virginia Realtors, exclusive authorization to sell, owner authorization regarding internet. I'm going to say, right, I'm going to say it in my terms. That's right. And if you're comfortable with it, then people, I believe that knowledge creates comfortableness, and comfortableness creates trust.
Also valued.
Right.
I think it's the value of
Yes.
the everything. Giving information, ministerial act, giving advice.
Right.
Representation.
Right. Yeah. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for texting.
check box number 2. And put in a, if you would like his, satisfaction form. And then if you're, if you have the.
I have